Hi, friends. Welcome to the Pain-Free Birth Podcast. I'm your host, Karen Welton, a certified doula, childbirth educator, and mother of three. In this space, we'll hear positive, supernatural, and yes, even pain-free birth stories from women just like you. We'll explore the deeply spiritual side of childbirth and how God designed women's bodies brilliantly for birth. Let's get started. Hey, friends. Welcome back. Today, I have the absolute privilege of interviewing Cait Scudder. Now, if that name sounds familiar, you may have heard her on this podcast sharing her birth story of her second baby, who was born in the water at home, nearly 11 pounds, and pain-free with the fetal ejection reflex. Now, her birth story is absolutely remarkable. And if you have not heard it yet, go back and listen to that episode, because in this episode, we are taking it deeper. We are going beyond the birth story and discussing how birth changes and defines our power as women. This is such an important conversation, and no one embodies this conversation better than Cait Scudder. As a friend, a coach, and a mentor, I respect this woman so much, and I had the privilege and honor of working with her as a birth coach, and then had the honor of having her coach me in my business. And so I know that this woman is the real deal, and she walks the talk, and her experience and transformation in motherhood, and even through this journey of birth, is so incredibly beautiful and sacred. And I just had to have her share this journey with you guys. This was actually recorded a little bit ago, but I found it just so powerful, and I had to share it with you on this podcast. So I hope you enjoy. So we are talking about how birth redefines our power as women, and I'm so excited to have Cait share about this. For those of you who don't know, Cait was my coach. I was her birth coach, and then she became my business coach. So, and then just feel like we're friends now a little bit. So here we are, like talking about birth, geeking out, and women in power, and how much there's so much overlap and interconnectedness in those areas. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with Cait, because this is a woman who like walks the talk, you guys. I had the privilege of spending time with her at her house, going on retreats, being in a coaching container with her, and the way she leads her life through her business and with her family, she really is the real deal. And so I could not think of a better person to talk about this with. And I know she has so many amazing things to share about it. And so I just want to open up the floor. Thank you for coming, Cait.
Karen, it is such an honor. Thank you so much for having me. I saw a comment. I thought we were going to see a birth today. No, you will not see a live birth. I am pregnant, but not about to give birth today. I am 14 weeks, but it has just been such an exquisite journey from hiring you and doing your course. And y'all, you follow Karen, so you know, but this woman, holy smokes, and the pain-free birth content, course, material, it truly changed the trajectory for my entire family. I had a very challenging and traumatic birth with my first, Ella, and my birth with Jack, which is the birth we're going to talk about today, was probably the singular most redemptive, healing, empowering feels almost trite to describe it, but it was the most activating experience of my entire life. And it is so exquisite that birth can open that portal, not just for our babies to come into the world, but truly for us as women to be reborn and redefined in who we are and how we show up in the world.
How was Jack's birth different from Ella's birth, your first? And how did that redefine your power? Because obviously you already had one birth, one child, but what was different about this one?
Oh my gosh, absolutely everything. Okay, so first, Ella, my husband and I conceived Ella on New Year's Day, 2020. So I spent the whole of quarter one / trimester one, like huddled up in fetal position on the couch, just so nauseous from first trimester stuff. And then just as I was coming into that, pregnancy glow of second trimester in the pregnancy with Ella, COVID hit. And so everything shut down. We had just moved to Los Angeles. We didn't have any community. The parks were closed. The beaches were closed. So it was incredibly isolating. And it was just a really challenging time. And so we took we didn't have any sort of like in-person connection. I didn't have a network of other moms around. I did take a hypnobirthing class, which was interesting in some ways. And I think in so many ways, like kind of set me up for, I don't want to say failure because it wasn't a failure at all, but I had really different expectations of what to expect of birth. Like this, some of the footage and material that this teacher included in the birth course was like of women fully dilated, like sitting in a hospital bed in the 80s, like eating a full chicken dinner. And I was like, oh, it's going to be just like a breeze. And so we were planning for a home birth, and Ella was 41 and 6. So she was nearly 2 weeks past her due date. And I had everything organized. As you can imagine, I am a businesswoman. I am a planner. I like to have shit organized, and birth, very much like motherhood, is the ultimate in just surrender, like make a plan, but like, it's probably not going to go exactly how you think it's going to go. And so when my waters broke, I'll never forget, my waters broke at probably 4:30 in the morning. I was so happy, Karen. I was like,
I bet.
babe, my waters broke. Like, and that was how my mom's labor started. I had this preconceived notion of like, oh, your water starting is how labor begins. Meanwhile, so many babies are born like and call, and your water doesn't have to break at all. But that's how my labor with Ella started. But I was quickly kind of dismayed to see that the water was green. It was like really green. And I knew that that was a contraindication. So told our midwife, she came over and she was like, you have meconium in your water. That is a sign that the baby could be in distress. Don't, like, not to freak you out, but we do have to transfer to the hospital. And my heart just sank, Karen. I wasn't prepared for the unexpected. I didn't even have a hospital bag packed. So my nervous system was already so clenched and contracted. And for anybody who has been in your course, you teach so beautifully about how that like the fear, not contraction as in like babies coming, as in clenching, like that is what starts the pain cycle. And so my experience in transferring to the hospital, like my midwife took the wrong turn. We like took a wrong exit on the highway to the hospital. It was just like everything that could have gone wrong basically did. And we ended up getting to the hospital. I was able to labor in the hospital, but they immediately put me on an IV and wouldn't let me push either on the toilet or in the tub because it was hospital policy. And so I was in labor for 26 hours, and the majority of that was in the hospital. And I was fully dilated for like 6 or 7 hours. And
Holy cow.
I've like done so much healing around this, and to go back is like taking me a bit. But I remember one of my big traumas. I remember when I hired you, I remember saying to you, I know this is such a bizarre trauma, but like, I'm terrified that I won't be able to pee during labor, because one of the things that happened to me at the hospital was that they wouldn't let me go to the bathroom because I was fully dilated, and they wouldn't let me push on the toilet. Meanwhile, we know how many babies are born on the toilet because
it's the best.
we're used to opening. And so anyway, after Ella was born, I had a whole NICU team. There were phones going off. Meanwhile, I was in that twilight zone somewhere between heaven and earth. I had nurses holding my legs, bent up to my ears, screaming push in my ear. And Ella came roaring into the world in one push, head, shoulders, body, one push. And because of that, I had an extremely bad tear. It was the 3rd, almost 4th degree tear.
Wow.
I couldn't walk across a room unassisted for 6 weeks postpartum with Ella. Ugh. And after they were like doing surgery, like stitching me up down there, and I needed to pee, but I couldn't pee. And so they hooked me up to a catheter and drained 1.5 liters of urine out of my bladder. It is a miracle. I thank God to this day that my bladder didn't burst while I was in labor, because, and she was 9 pounds and 5 ounces. So also a big baby. She had to go past that enormously full to the point of bursting bladder in order to be born, which was part of the reason it was so painful. And so it was, and the main thing that, there was fear, there was all sorts of like policy and procedure that got in the way. But the big thing was, I was using my breath, Karen, in that birth to almost like brace against and almost like hold my breath through the contractions. And one of the most exquisite things that I learned from your course, and I'll get to this in a second, is using the breath to embrace every wave. And I have to say, like, I rode my breath like waves in the ocean for the labor that I had with Jack at home. And Jack was born in the water. He was nearly 11 pounds, 10 pounds, 15
I
ounces.
literally have goosebumps right now.
His head was 15 centimeters, y'all. And I barely tore. I had like a tiny little, barely 1 degree tear. I was walking across the house that night. And
So
it
perfect,
was,
because all week we've been talking about big babies and birthing big babies. And here you are, you got like a 3rd-degree tear, almost 4th from your first 9.5 pounds, which is big in itself. And
yeah.
then,
And Jack was 1.5 pounds bigger and I barely tore. And it was not, it was about the position. I was on my back. Nurses were shoving my legs. So it was like, can I do this on the live? Let's see. My legs were like up here and it was
yeah,
just,
the classic position we always, that they put
and
women into birth in the
yes.
hospitals, like
Meanwhile,
crank your
with
legs up.
Jack, I was on my hands and knees. I was birthing in a tub. I was letting all the sound come out and I just let my body. And the coolest thing about Jack's birth is, and I know I've shared this in my birth story and I saw you share it a little bit.
Yeah.
You guys, my body ejected him. Like I did not push him out. There was no one screaming at me to push. My body knew and it expelled him. And so after Ella's birth, I did a lot of healing. I worked with a therapist to like clear the trauma of that birth. I sought out the most incredible pelvic floor physical therapist to work with here in person. And I saw her almost weekly for my entire pregnancy to do energy healing, but also pelvic movements. And I worked with Karen. I took your course, I worked with you, and I really lent into the knowing of this gets to be different. And holy smokes, like what happened at Jack's birth was the most incredible thing. Oh, and I'm so glad somebody's asking about a prolapse. I had a very bad prolapse with Ella. My bladder was like at the base of my vagina. Like I thought I might have to get one of those, what's it called?
Reconstructive surgery or
Maybe
something.
it's called is it called a pessary? There's like a thing that you put in your underwear to basically like hold your internal organs in place to not like fall out of your vagina. So I had a bladder prolapse, and that was part of the work I did with the pelvic floor physical therapist. But I went on to birth a near 11-pound baby, you guys, and like no sense of
Crazy.
anything. I'm great. I've gone running since. Like my lady bits are totally healed. And so I just like, you're the birth expert here, Karen, but just anecdotally, if someone's like, I can't deliver vaginally because I had a prolapse, like not true.
Amen. I love that. And you are such a perfect example of the difference in pushing physiologically versus pushing the way they teach you in a hospital, which is filled with fear and pressure and like intensity. But when we allow our bodies to do it the way our bodies know how to do, you can have an 11-pound baby come out with no tearing and you don't even have to hardly push. Like, I love that the fetal ejection reflex, which you mentioned, FER, that's what that stands for, took over. And your body, your uterus is literally designed to push. Even if your baby is 11 pounds, I mean, there's positional, obviously, techniques and breathing techniques. It all goes together. But the fact that we're so scared of big babies or of pushing and pain, like our bodies are designed to do this. And it's such a beautiful example of when we work with our bodies and we tap into our own power, what is possible in birth. And like you saw the night and day difference there. And I just think that's brilliant.
It's so true. And, you know, I alluded to this earlier, Karen, of like, I am a business owner. I am a woman who like gets it done. I used to be a competitive athlete. Like I'm sure like many of you who are listening, I like to make a plan and like be in control. And so one of the major kind of themes and tenets of my business, I'm a business mentor for women entrepreneurs. And one of the themes in my business up until Jack's birth was my podcast was called Born to Rise. I had a mastermind called the Rise Mastermind. There was a lot of this like sacred almost like summoning energy of like, women rise, you can do anything you put your mind to, like such a strong empowerment lens. And I've shared this so many times on different interviews, and it's so beautiful for me to even like process and talk through, because when Jack's birth occurred, June 27th, 2022, I'll never forget it. Like the rain started to fall as soon as I went into transition. And my little Cancer baby, like I went into labor getting into a lake, and I went into like it was beautiful and sunny the whole labor, and then the rain started to softly fall around 12 o'clock, and he was born at 12:30 on the nose and in the water. And it was just like the message that Jack's birth brought me was an initiation into a whole different understanding of power. And so much of my identity, so much of not just who I was in the world, but my message for women and how I coached women and how I taught women and how I looked at business, let alone how I approached motherhood and life. It was like this older way of we decide who we want to become and then rise into her. There was a lot of that that was still there, but what Jack's birth initiated me into is like, what if the ultimate expression of power has nothing to do with our forcing anything? What if our ultimate expression of power is not actually about our will? What if the ultimate expression of power isn't, put your mind to it and you can achieve it? What if the ultimate expression of power is allowing, oh, I have goosebumps over my whole body. What if it is allowing that which is wanting to move through you happen and not get in the way? And that catalyzed and sparked for me, Karen, a whole trajectory of unlearning and relearning that I have still integrated to this day. And it's what catalyzed me to rebrand my company, The Millionaire Mother, and really focus on supporting mothers in business, was this single catalytic event of Jack's birth and that visceral experience. I remember in labor, I said to my midwife, I said, when it was like starting to get intense and I was going to transition, I said, Sarah, I'm scared. Like, this is like, I've been riding these waves. I've been breathing through it. And like, holy moly, I am like in for a ride and I'm getting scared. And she said,
Talk about power.
yeah. She said that power, like that is what is going to bring your baby home. She said, let it happen, let it happen, let it happen. And it was the most exquisite thing. One other thing, I just want to say this, speaking of FER and the fetal ejection reflex and surrender in labor, like one thing she said to me during the labor, this was a bit early on, she said, Cait, a woman in a coma who goes into labor will deliver a baby. And that by itself, like, can we just talk about that for a second? If we're having a conversation about power, and power is not our will, our effort, our decision, our decidedness.
Yeah, or how strong you are. Like so many women have this conception of like, oh, I'm not strong enough to handle natural labor. What if it had nothing to do with that?
It has nothing to do with that. And I think that the physiology, which I know you return to so much, Karen, which is so grounding and so beautiful, like a woman who is in a coma, her body knows how to deliver that baby without any conscious effort at all. And I think about the analogies between birth and so many other areas of life, business included. Like, if we allow the life force that is naturally wanting to move through us to happen, imagine what could be possible. If the analogy in the birth world is you can have a bigger baby with less of a tear, with a more holy, redemptive, healing experience. Like, what if we chose to lead our lives that way? What if we chose to run our businesses, for those of us who are business owners, that way? Like, that level of ease and that level of surrender is so available to us.
Yes, I love this conversation so much because you're right. It absolutely applies to every area of our life. And I think what you're talking about is essentially the feminine, like the feminine energy. And when we learn this is what the feminine does, it receives, it allows, it opens, it surrenders, it's fluid and it moves. And when we really understand that and tap into that, which is an essence we all carry as divine women, as women birthing, that we're created for this. And we can tap into that not only in birth to have miraculous, beautiful, smooth, pain-free labors, and birth 11-pound babies, like with the power of our bodies, but also tapping into that in our parenting and in our businesses and allowing what we are so brilliant to do, which is what you are so good at, Cait. And what I want to talk more about is how do we take that power that is innate in us, this feminine energy, this feminine power of allowing and surrendering, and actually learn to run our business this way instead of having to try to force something or being a parent to our kids, or like whatever we do in our zone of genius. And many of you here, many women now are running side hustles and businesses, and we're always thinking of creative ways, to express our giftings. And I love that you have taken these principles that you learned from your birth and applied them to your business strategy. And then you teach women how to do that in their own business. Because when I came to you, I was like burned out running my business. And I'm like, I just need I need support. I need someone to tell me I can do this. And I don't know if there's anyone else out there feeling this way, but like if you're overwhelmed as a mother, as a business owner, as someone preparing for birth or pregnancy, and you're like, this is a lot. I'm overwhelmed and stressed out. And there is such a beauty in this surrender, because I so believe in what you're saying. And I think so many women need to hear this message, because we're so ingrained in this way of doing things that is masculine, that's like force it. It's like the nurses telling you to hold your knees up and force push for 4 hours.
Yes.
We're taught how to do that in life too. Like, here's how you run a
100%.
business. Here's how you operate. And there's a new way of being for women. And I love that we're talking about this and that you're one of the leaders leading the charge in this area. And it's just so beautiful to me. So share more about how this impacts business and how we as women can lead from our feminine energy and our surrender and our allowing in our business as well.
100%. I love this question so much. I did a post the other day. I saw that you actually reshared it to your stories about like the patriarchy failing women most in birth and in business. And the analogies are just, it is such a parallel track. This idea of you can't, a medical professional knows best, the expert knows best, don't trust your own body. And the subliminal message that I think women are given in both the birth world and the business world is don't trust your instinct, don't trust your body's natural impulses, don't listen to that. There is a set way that this is done as established by the institution, and that is the verifiable and certain message. And just like in birth, in the business world, so many women are scared into thinking either motherhood and the mess and the fluids and the humanity of motherhood doesn't mix with business. And we see this polished, and I mean, I go off on this, but we see this polished version of what business is supposed to look like, because historically in this country, let's not forget that it was the 70s until a woman could open a bank account by herself without her husband or brother or uncle or whatever co-signing on the account. But we have seen companies by and large run by men. And so anything to do with maternal anything was like, there was no place for it in the business world because it wasn't relevant. And so mothers in today's day and age, even in like the digital marketing, digital online business world, like you and I are both in, Karen, in different niches and in different fields, but there is like a set way set by the digital marketing experts, which are largely men, that there is a way to do things. And in both birth and in business, the underlying message that women receive is don't trust your instinct, don't trust your body. There's someone else that knows better. And I think the work that we are fundamentally doing here is saying, is that really true? What if your motherly instinct is actually your secret sauce to making more money and having more ease inside of your business? What if all of the things that don't fit anymore about whether ways that you used to run your business in your maiden era or ways of running business that you see modeled that you're like, yeah, that just does not fit my reality. What if trusting your instinct to leave those and step bravely into the new way that's calling you? What if that is actually your destiny, to become the most successful and the most impactful as you could possibly be? We are ready for a new way. As mothers, we are ready for a new model. We're ready for a new example of what it gets to look like to be in that feminine power and do business in life in a completely different way.
Oh, I'm so thankful for women like you who are leading, because I feel like just like in birth, it's so important for women to see other women giving birth. It's so important that we can see this and go, "Oh, I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know my body was capable of that." That's why I share birth videos all the time. Just like in life and in business, it's so important for us as women to see other women leading, to see other women make tons of money, pardon my French, but like how the fact that we can do this, that we can, and it's not just about the money, but it's about truly tapping into our power, truly taking ownership of what God has given us to share, and the
Yes.
giftings we have and that we carry that we're meant to share with the world, the influence that we have, and being able to give something, to monetize it, to bless other people, to really have influence and authority in this world, and not just keep ourselves small. And I think women
Absolutely.
have been trained to like stay small and like follow the rules, be a good little girl. And it shows up in maternity care, and we come out on the other side with birth trauma. It shows up in the world, in the marketplace. It's like, well, I'll just do this and give all my gifts away for free, but I can't charge for it. Or I'll just let my husband make the money. I'm the one that stays home. Nothing wrong with that. But like, what about if you want to do more? What about those women who are sitting there saying like, I have something to give and I need someone to help me get this off the ground. But the world often tells us like, no, just do as you're told. Right.
100%. And I love the way that you frame that even earlier of like blessing others with our gifts, because I
Yeah.
think for a lot of us, and I know you've cultivated such a beautiful community of like truly heart-centered, spirit-led women who believe in the natural God-given power inside of your body, who know that something exquisite and beautiful and divine is destined for you. Like your gifts and your power as a woman, as a birther, as a mother, as a creative vessel, like you don't just have the ability, the physiological capacity to birth babies. You also have the physiological capacity to be that same creative vessel and creative channel for ideas and thought leadership
Yes.
and business ideas to be birthed through you. And just like it's outside messaging that tells you, well, maybe you should trust the expert. Why don't you just get the C-section? Why don't you just do this because you probably can't do it? It's the same voice that says, you probably can't run a business. You're not that great with money. You don't know how to do a spreadsheet. And like we have all of
Yeah.
these voices that it is so important that we say, you know what? No, I am choosing not to listen to that. I'm choosing to align to this different way. And this other piece you've spoken to of like the conditioning to just be grateful for what we have and not be ambitious for more, that like good girl conditioning,
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, it got inserted into our psyche that to be deeply grateful, to be humble, to be a devoted spouse, to be a devoted wife, to be a loving mother, equated some degree of personal sacrifice, of happiness, fulfillment, personal expression. And that like screwed a lot of us up, to be frank. And
Oh, I bet
with
you're triggering people right now because it's so
the,
ingrained in us that
it's
like,
so ingrained. And the
yeah,
paradigm, like, I really want to ask every woman who is listening to this now in the future to ask yourself, is it really true that to be grateful and to be humble and to be, you know, a good steward of the earth and your gifts and this beautiful life you've been given, that equates putting yourself down. I actually think that the most sacred way we can live out our life, this is my personal belief, is truly shining and letting be seen. It's like, it reminds me of that quote in the Bible, like that bring forward that was what's inside. I'm paraphrasing, but bring forward that which is within you, and like that will set you free. Like that is how I interpret that. That is what I interpret that to mean, is like we all have this treasure trove of gifts. And if we allow ourselves to express that and let that be liberated and free, we can be wildly successful while still anchored deeply into the values that matter most to us. And that is stewarding our ultimate expression of feminine power.
Oh, I love it. It's something God spoke to me before I started Pain Free Birth was you are light and you're born to shine. And that's been such a transformation for me of learning how to be seen, how to put myself out there, how to overcome all those fears and insecurities and inhibitions that I used to like put up walls to keep myself small or stay in the background. But truly, like we are born to shine. And I believe this is true, not just for me or just for Cait, but for every woman listening, that
100%.
we are created to shine. We are created to be seen. We are created to have an impact and an influence in this world. And we need resources to do that. We need support. We need sisters. And so I just encourage you, women, even if you don't have, let's say, a thriving business, or maybe you do, or maybe you're saying, I want to get a business off the ground, or I want to start a side hustle, or I have an idea, or I want to write a book, whatever that dream is in your heart, that maybe God is nudging you right now to say like, hey, it's time. It's time to stop putting this on the back burner. It's time to press go, to hit play, to put yourself out there and be seen. I just so believe in what Cait does. She so stands for empowering women in every area of life. And I think it's so important as women to get in the room and hang around with other powerful women who are doing this, who are taking risks, who have gone before us and are doing the things that we want to do. You guys, I did a 6-month program with her. It's epic. Like the retreats, the programming, the coaching, what she did for my business, I am so grateful for. And in allowing me to be free in my femininity, be surrendered, and to lead from that energy is transforming my life and my business. And I'm just such a student of this work. And so I can't say enough good things about it. But
thank you, Karen. It's so beautiful. And, I just have to say, as you were talking about that pit of like sharing our light, it took me back. I don't know if anybody else here went to like VBS, Vacation Bible School, as a kid, but like it brought me back to do you remember those like little paraffin candles with the paper thing so the wax didn't drip on your hand, and like singing "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." Like we didn't just sing that as 7-year-olds, you guys, at camp. Like there was a reason that we did that. And to your point, Karen, like that candle wouldn't have gotten lit without someone else to be lit from. And I think that is your point of like getting in the room. All of us have that candle. Every single one of us has that flame to be ignited, but where we choose to put ourselves will determine. And we know, like we see this in plants, we see this in human beings, we see this in family systems. Like if we are not in an environment that is breathing, like they've done studies with water molecules, and in a room of classical music and loving affirmations, and in a room of argument, like the cellular constitution of water changes. Plants go from like this to this. The rooms that we are in drastically change, not the potential that we were imprinted with, but what we choose to do with that potential.
Thank you, Cait, for sharing. Thank you for just infusing this space with your story, your bravery, your courage. I love it. And for anyone looking, if you want to take the same course she took, you can find that information too in my bio.
Oh my God. I just have to take a second to talk about this, Karen, because obviously you all are here because Karen is the freaking GOAT, the greatest of all time of birth education. But I have to say, like, I'm going to get emotional. Like, Karen, your course like changed the trajectory of my whole family. It changed the trajectory of my life. It is so much more than just a birth course, you guys. This course will teach you the skills for riding through the waves of anything that life throws at you. And the intensity of birth is one of the most beautiful, powerful, potent, intense portals, initiations that women and mothers go through. And it is ripe with so much magic. And the way that you teach, the combination of both practical technique and just deep spiritual grounding and reminders, there's nothing else like it. It is an absolute no-brainer. It is the best. If you are pregnant, it is the best money you will spend, hands down, in your pregnancy. Like, forget the bougie carrier, buy this course, like the end. And this was not sponsored, by the way. I just have to say that as somebody who's gone through this and did another hypnobirthing course and like thought I was prepared and then experienced, like, it's just night and day. And Karen, your work is just changing the lives of tens of thousands of women. And it's so, so beautiful. So from someone who went through it and was completely changed and birthed an 11-pound baby at home without pushing, I highly recommend it.
You guys, this is life transforming too. I can't speak like more highly enough of Cait and her work because she truly embodies this work. Like, we could just gush on each other all day.
Karen, thank you so much for having me on and letting me share with your community and just the beautiful work you're bringing forward.
Thank you for coming on, Cait. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
I hope this episode radically expanded your view of birth and motherhood. Cait has been such a shining example in my life of what it looks like when mothers are free to pursue their dreams for family, having babies, and even making millions of dollars in the process. As wives and mothers, we are called by God to be a source of love and nurture for our family. And God has put big dreams in your heart. It's so easy to buy into the lies that we must sacrifice our dreams on the altar of motherhood. Or if we choose to pursue our dreams, many of us hustle and grind our way to the top and wear busyness as a badge of honor. Neither of these strategies will serve you or your family. Raising a family and running a business has taught me how important it is to have role models and coaches in our life that show us what's possible. For me, Cait is one of those role models. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Pain-Free Birth Podcast. If you were encouraged, it would mean so much if you left us a 5-star review and shared this with your community. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram at Pain-Free Birth. And to learn more about the Pain-Free Birth e-course, free resources, private coaching, and upcoming events, find out more at painfreebirth.com. See you next week.